Dr. Osae Kwapong, I don't know where you stand and how you process these things as they continue to happen. Sometimes I don't know whether I should give up. This is a comment. I'll read that and ask you a question. This is from Fred, and Fred says, this documentary by Erastus and many others, and Erastus has been on this for a while, for many years now. This documentary by Erastus and many others break my heart. Why are we allowing ourselves to be treated this way by galamsey? And the whole state of Ghana, with the state machinery, as if he's quoting Justice Atuguba, with the state machinery, cannot fight this menace? I fail to believe that. Some of us think the death penalty should be on our statute books, and perhaps its scope expanded to include illegal miners. Look at how a few selfish people are destroying us and our future. Prof, you share in these sentiments. The question is, and I go back to that question, why is it that this is the regime where the fight has been the most heightened, and yet the devastation has been the worst?
And for me, it appears that I don't know why the state is struggling to win, quote unquote, to win this, or at least to minimize it, right? A year ago, I wrote about this in the Daily Graphic, where I said there are three issues for me that the state is trying to make sense of and reconcile, right? So there's the economics of it. Right or wrong, there are people who have strong incentives to engage, in galamsey because of, the desire to earn a livelihood is their source of employment. At the same time, if you also look at the small scale mining sector in which galamsey occurs, it is also critical to the state in terms of the revenue that accrues and even how much that sector as a whole employs. So there's the economics part of it. But now we are starting to realize, look, even as strong as these economic incentives are, it has given us major problems and major headaches. So we've tried to come up with some policy solutions to it. So if you go back all the way to when the small scale sector was regularized under the PNDC regime, right? It seems like the approach was, okay, we would regularize it, and then we would provide some monitoring, some oversight, regulations, etc., etc. That seems not working, right? So we now injected another component to that attempts at regularization and monitoring, which is, if you remember, the Kufuor administration had Operation Flash Out using, the security services. President John Mahama had a similar, interministerial thing against galamsey, and then the most recent administration as well. As Mr. Suleimana said, the biggest thing that I think is continuing to undermine the policy approaches and dealing with the economic incentives is the politics. I thought it was a very brilliant idea that in fighting galamsey, the administration came up with an alternative livelihood employment program, so that if you could shift their attention from doing galamsey to earn a living to other productive ventures, economic ventures, then you can deal with that menace.
No, but it was I think a double two-pronged. First, create alternative livelihood for those who are desiring to go there, and then most importantly, ensure responsible mining, small scale level.
Precisely. And yet some way, somehow, we still see this this menace going on with devastating effects. I mean, all you have to do is to follow Erasmus's work, and you just have to look at our water bodies and the way they are looking. The politics, I think, is what is making this even more challenging to fight. And when I wrote last year, I said to myself, galamsey has to become a zero-sum game, which is no political winners and no political losers, right? That we all have to recognize that this thing has the potential to kill people without respect or regard for party colors. And at the same time, the stakeholders involved. I mean, you read stories, you hear stories of the faces, the voices, the people behind this. And you also realize that sometimes the very people that you are engaging to fight this menace are allegedly the people who are actually encouraging the practice to go on. And you ask yourself, at what point are we all going to, wake up and say that this thing can't go on forever? And as Suleimana said, to have the kind of real political will that says, even if this means I lose the next election, or even if this means I lose my seat, even if this means X happens to my party, I am willing to really fight this.
But the president has said that. He said he's put his presidency on the line. And some have done the analysis to show that in the last election, he suffered in certain areas because of this.
And parties must be willing to, and yes, maybe I'm speaking, theoretically, maybe I'm not a politician on the ground, and therefore, but that is the attitude and that is the approach that all the stakeholders must have, right? Otunfo once even alleged that, look, all of us gathered in this room, we know those who are, involved in this. So let's say if you are a chief in an area that it's happening, you should be willing to become the most unpopular chief. But how do you get all of these stakeholders to say, you know what, this thing would kill all of us? And for me, the political will, not even at the presidency, but the political will among all of the stakeholders who are involved in this is what hopefully it would take to end this menace.
Do you think, and that's my final question to you, do you think that the manner in which Ashaman was dealt with initially, where we even had the senior minister of all ministers come to suggest to us that we had nothing to benefit from prosecuting her, and so we had to ship her away, and that we were going to suffer somehow economically if we didn't do that. Comments like that, comments like what the president had to say not too long ago about his party chairman in the Ashanti region, Chairman Wuntumi, Bernard Ntwibu-Esiako, who was found, his company, he deals in gold, his company was found to be at the wrong place illegally. And it took the state, the minister and the Forestry Commission all telling this country that he was doing the wrong thing. And yet the president came to make a statement that has been said to be a defense of him. Do you think some of those pronouncements have done, some bad to the fight, and to what extent?
It's not even just done bad even to the fight, but it also does a lot of, damage to the president's public statements and commitment, right? I mean, the president, I agree with him when he always says that not until you are in trouble with the law, you would not understand and appreciate due process. And he tends to make that argument. And in principle, I agree with that. But in practice, it is also some of these things and what you say or do not say and the actions you take, even whilst you're waiting for due process to take its course, that is what shapes the public opinion and the public perceptions about one's commitment, to the fight against galamsey. And I think it is on some of those things that I believe hurts the president and the administration when they talk about their commitment to the fight against galamsey.
All right. And Nana Kumia, recently